A Triumphant, Team GB are back to a hero's welcome. The record breakers landed home this morning on the aptly named Flight Victorious.
God save our queen.
But the celebrations don't stop on the plane, as they can now raise a glass with family and friends.
We can be proud of what we've done out there, so it's good to be home, really good. Can't wait to just actually see my family. I can see them now, so I'm happy.
Also this lunchtime, the hospital's suspending acute services because there aren't enough doctors and nurses. The 8-year-old boy from Birmingham killed in a grenade attack in Sweden. And a study that says the HRT drug increases the risk of breast cancer in women.
This is the ITV Lunchtime News with Charlene White.
Good afternoon. To cheers and rapturous applause, Britain's triumphant Olympians arrived back home today. After our most successful overseas games ever, the gold medal winners were given first-class treatment on a gold-nosed British Airways jet. There was a carnival atmosphere on board, with athletes taking selfies and posing with their medals and cabin crew. And as the precious cargo safely touched down at Heathrow, they even belted out "God Save the Queen." Richard Pallet reports on the hero's return.
Back home after the most successful games in British Olympic history. Having swapped Rio for Heathrow, fittingly the sun was still shining on them. It took a full 6 minutes to get all the medalists to disembark at speed for the photo call. And remember, some of them are already back in the UK. Anyhow, another one for Team GB's overflowing album. And with friends, family and newfound fans waiting to welcome them.
We can be proud of what we've done out there, so it's good to be home, really good. Can't wait to just actually see my family. I can see them now, so I'm happy.
And happy to get a hug from his girlfriend just seconds later. These are moments to cherish for so many success stories.
Oh, it's been an absolutely thrilling experience, and it's even more thrilling being home. I can't believe there's so many people. I'm actually quite nervous.
As for the flight home, well, it was one big party. Gold medalists throughout first and business class, and a good job too in the case of gymnast Max Whitlock. This manoeuvre might well have been a touch tight in economy. There was time for the national anthem to be heard once more also. On this occasion, standing on seats rather than another podium.
God save our queen.
As the celebrations continued in the cabin, up front even the plane's captain got into the spirit of things. His messages to air traffic control included: just north of Tokyo, staring at the rising sun, bring on 2020. 67 medals have 67 minutes to landing, and ready for arrival celebrations.
To land and to know that people have been watching, and people have said for a long time, you know, Britain's behind you. We've felt it. We felt the excitement to come home, and for people to be proud of us and to feel that sense of pride. I've never experienced anything like it. It's far beyond anything I could have imagined, actually.
The aircraft's nose had been covered in gold. Just like the athletes, it was returning. From a British perspective, Tokyo 2020 has an awful lot to live up to. Richard Pallet, ITV News.
Well, a short time ago, I spoke to swimming gold medalist Adam Peaty when he got off that flight, and began by asking him what it felt like flying back first class from Rio.
Oh, amazing. You know, I was around all the other athletes from other sports, so it was great to, mingle with them and, fully enjoy the flight back home, because, there's a lot of celebrating to be done now, and realise what we've done and, hopefully enjoy all the experience.
Was it that moment when you landed on that tarmac and you've got that amazing picture of all you guys going down the stairs and also the tarmac? Was it that moment where you sort of realised, oh my goodness, we're huge?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to remember that moment for the rest of my life now, and you know, it was absolutely amazing to be there. You know, obviously, that's the iconic image of every Olympics, and it's great to be part of that, and you know, hopefully we'll have many more in the future now.
And what was it like to see your family finally after a month apart from them?
Yeah, it was quite emotional actually. You know, I've been a month away now, so to see them was absolutely amazing for me. You know, I'll probably see them again in a few hours. Well, I will see them again in a few hours, which will be even better, and I can actually relax with them and be around home, which I'm definitely looking forward to now.
Yeah, I was going to ask, is that one of the big things that you're looking forward to? Is, I don't know, going home, sitting on the sofa with your friends and family and watching a bit of telly?
Yeah, it's all about getting back to reality now, and we're not in a village anymore, so it's going to be quite difficult to cook for myself again. But yeah, it's going to, when things get back to normal, it's going to be great to walk my dog again and just drive and just enjoy it all really. And I've have a lot of time off now, and yeah, just take it all in.
Now, one could argue, because of course you were the first person to pick up a gold in Rio, one could argue you were an inspiration for all the other medalists in terms of the medals they picked up.
Yeah, I think we got the momentum going as a swimming team. Obviously Jazz got a silver as well the same night, so that was definitely a push forward. So hopefully now, in Tokyo we can do exactly the same and yeah, give the team a boost. And that momentum was so valuable to me as an athlete, and obviously I'm going to remember that. First games in South America, first gold medal for Team GB. So it's pretty
So do
cool
tell
fact
us,
to have.
how long are you going to be able to have off before you have to start training again?
Probably about seven weeks, nearly 2 months. I'll go on holiday and yeah, just fully take it in and enjoy it really, and obviously celebrate. But when it's back to work, it's back to work, and I've got to put all this behind me and move on.
Absolutely. Well, Adam, really do enjoy the next 7 weeks, and thank you for talking to us.
Thank you very much.
Adam Peaty talking to me a few minutes ago. Sticking with the Olympics, but in the Paralympics, Russia has lost its appeal against its ban from the Rio Paralympics. The decision to ban the country over its state-sponsored doping problem was made earlier this month. The Court of Arbitration for Sport upheld the ruling, which means at least 250 Russian athletes will miss the Games. Other news now, and ITV News can reveal that a number of hospitals in England have been forced to suspend or close services because they don't have enough doctors or nurses to fill them. 16 trusts have told us they've had to resort to extreme measures in the last 12 months to keep patients safe. Our health editor Rachel Younger is here. Rachel, these findings are really concerning, aren't they?
Yeah, I think what this investigation does is adds to the increasing concern surrounding staffing levels within the NHS. We hear repeatedly, don't we, from doctors and nurses who tell us that they are being asked to do extra shifts, that when they're on those shifts, rota gaps mean they're being stretched to the limit, trying to keep patients safe. We wanted to gauge what impact that was having on England's hospitals. So we asked every NHS trust in England if over the past 12 months they'd suspended any acute services because of a shortage of doctors and nurses. Now, 16 trusts, that's 1 in 7 of those that responded, had been forced to. Let me give you some more detail on that. Airedale NHS Trust suspended maternity services 11 times over 12 months. East Cheshire also suspended its maternity services twice, and children's wards 19 times. Whilst the Princess Alexandra Hospital in Essex told us it's had to close its stroke service completely since April. And even those hospitals I've spoken to who have not had to close any of their doors say they're getting by day, shift by shift in trying to fill enough posts. One of them, Colchester and Ipswich, said it's even having to ask GPs whether they will cover A&E departments, help cover that at the weekend.
We have been creative, but there's only, again, so much. We rely on a lot of goodwill. We ask consultants and registrars to act down into more junior roles, but there will become a point at which people will become exhausted and it will be even more difficult to fill those rotas and to keep people safe.
So NHS England, we asked for a response to this. They haven't given us a direct response yet. What they have told us on repeated occasions is that they have recruited 25,000 extra medics in the past 6 years. But what is absolutely clear is that that supply isn't meeting demand. We're seeing more patients wanting to go into hospital. They have more complex conditions, often because, of course, they are older. And what I'm being told by chief executives is that this needs to be addressed to get the NHS through the winter.
OK, Rachel, thank you very much. Women who return to work after having a baby fall even further behind men in earning power. A new report says the gap between the hourly earnings also becomes wider over the subsequent 12 years. The study's authors say this is partly because women who return to work often reduce their hours and miss out on opportunities for promotion. We'll hear from our business editor in just a moment, but first, here's Sally Biddulph with the details.
Rena Goldenberg-Lynch quit her job as a city lawyer and now runs a consultancy business on gender diversity. After having her 2 children, she saw male colleagues promoted ahead of her and decided to branch out on her own.
I do think that there's a general sense that when women have children, they are less committed because they will have conflicting priorities, their family and their work, and therefore there is an automatic assumption that they're no longer as ambitious or committed to the business. And in particular, if you go part-time, that's the case.
Today's study looked at hourly pay rates and found in the early 90s women were paid 28% less than men. 10 years later, it had dropped to 23%. Today, it's better at 18% less than men. But if women have a baby, the pay gap doubles, with mothers earning 33% less than men by the time the child is 12.
That widening of the gender pay gap after childbirth has a lot to do with women reducing their hours of paid work. And what happens then is they don't just reduce their total earnings because they're working less, but the amount they're paid per hour tends to stop growing. So part-time workers don't seem to get the wage progression that full-time workers do.
Women are only too aware of the pay gap, mums more so than others. For many, it's a big consideration when having children.
Yes, you do go back part-time. Maybe you're doing 4 days, but you're effectively working 5 days, you're getting less pay.
Work could only offer completely half-time, like a job share, or full-time. So that kind of does quite affect your career prospects, really, within an organisation, because you can't really progress.
The fight for equal pay began with Dagenham's female Ford workers walking out over the issue. The Equal Pay Act soon followed. We may have the legislation, but the discrepancy lingers half a century on. Sally Biddulph, ITV News.
Well, as I mentioned, our business editor Joel Hills is here to talk more about this. Now, Joel, when Theresa May became Prime Minister, she said she wanted to create a country that works for everyone. But the pay gap isn't going to be that easy, is it?
Look, it's a popular political pledge. David Cameron, her predecessor, made a similar pledge last summer. He said he wanted to eradicate the pay gap within a generation. Hard to deliver on, but some progress made. That much is clear today. The Equal Pay Act created the right for men and women to be paid the same for equivalent work. But 46 years on, and what we really learned today is that for every £1 a man earns per hour on average, a woman earns around 82 pence. Progress made, still a gap, but one that balloons after women have children, and that's a real issue. It's not just about pay rises, of course, it's about missing out on promotion too. Generally speaking, the higher you go up within companies and other organisations, the more men fill senior roles. There has been political change. We've seen more shared childcare arrangements, and we've also seen that the companies are going to be forced, some of the biggest companies, to publish their own individual pay gaps as of next year. Now, do companies discriminate against women? They say they don't. But look at what happened recently when the coalition government set targets for women in the boardroom. They work. Enforced transparency does lead to change.
OK, Joel, thank you very much. An 8-year-old boy from Birmingham has been killed after a grenade was thrown into a flat in Sweden. Yusuf Warsame, who was asleep when the attack happened, was visiting relatives at the time. Police are investigating links to a criminal dispute. Juliet Bremner has more.
8-year-old Yusuf Warsame was staying with relatives in Sweden when he was fatally injured in the grenade attack. He's believed to have been asleep in a ground floor flat in Gothenburg beside his mother, sister and brother when the grenade was thrown through the window. At the family shop in Birmingham's Spark Hill, his father spoke of his bright, loving little boy.
Your heart is broken. The son, you was a lovely boy. He was a hard worker. He loved his education. He was a sports, like sporty.
Police believe that Yusuf is an innocent victim caught up in a local gang feud.
It's disgusting. I wonder how a person can deliberately throw a hand grenade into an apartment when they haven't a clue about who and what is inside.
Families in the Biskopsgatan district of Gothenburg were reassured by community police. This is the latest in a series of attacks, including cars being deliberately set alight and shootings. One of the men seen here carrying out an armed attack on a local pub used to live in the block of flats where Yusuf was killed, according to Gothenburg police. A summer break that's ended in tragedy for a British family. Juliet Bremner, ITV News.
The ongoing wait to recover the bodies of 3 of the 4 men killed in the Didcot power station explosion is unacceptable, say politicians. It's 6 months since the building collapsed, and today the families of those who died will mark the anniversary at the site. Our correspondent Rupert Evelyn is in Didcot for us and joins us now. Rupert.
Well, there was a prediction when this power station collapsed that it would take many months, perhaps even up to a year, to recover the bodies of the 3 missing. Those 3 men who are still buried somewhere beneath the rubble and the twisted metal are Ken Creswell, John Shaw and Chris Huxtable. The body of Michael Collings was recovered shortly after the collapse. Well, the families will meet here today to mark the 6th-month occasion, and they are, I think it's fair to say, upset that there is still no resolution to finding the missing.
It's not fair. Have anybody ever heard of anything so drastic? To leave men laying there for 6 months. You know, my oldest brother laying there for 6 months. It's disgusting.
Well, the word unacceptable has been used by the mayor of Didcot in terms of how long it is taking to recover these bodies. N-Power, on their behalf, who manage and own this site, say that they are working 12 hours a day in order to try and retrieve these 3 bodies. But as each day passes, it is frankly, I think, just adding more upset to those who are desperate to get their loved ones home.
Rupert, thank you. The chairman of education watchdog Ofsted has resigned after comments he made about the Isle of Wight. David Hoare stood down immediately. He came under fire this month for describing parts of the island as a ghetto where there was inbreeding. Women taking the most common form of hormone replacement therapy have much greater chance of developing breast cancer than previously thought. Around 1 in 10 British women in their 50s use HRT to deal with symptoms of the menopause. But now the biggest study ever suggests that the combined form can be risky. The study by the Institute of Cancer Research and Breast Cancer Now found that women using the drug in its combined form, where it's made up of both estrogen and progesterone, were 2.7 times more likely to develop breast cancer. Women taking that drug for 15 years or more had more than triple the risk than those who took nothing. Although taking the estrogen-only pill had no increased risk at all. Well, joining us to discuss this is Baroness Deleth Morgan, the Chief Executive of Breast Cancer Now, and Amanda Jones, who took part in the study. Thank you both so much for joining us. Deleth, I have to start with you, because why are we been prescribed pills that make us 3 times more likely to develop cancer?
Well, what we have to remember is for many women, the experience of the menopause can be extremely debilitating, can make life almost hell for some women. So HRT is an important choice, but what women need to know is what's the evidence. So what are my risks of developing breast cancer, and how important is it to me that I mitigate my menopausal symptoms? So it's really important information for women to make choices.
Now, Amanda, your daughter died from breast cancer. Do you agree with Deleth when she says that we need to be more aware of the risks so we can make more of an informed choice as to the pills we take?
Most definitely I do, yes. I think one of the things that always strikes me about the Generation study, for which I have the privilege of being the participant representative, is that in the in terms of research, it's actually been alive, so to speak, for a fairly short period of time. And had we known what the Generation study has discovered in the past 13 years, which is the time since Bex died, there would have been so many other options for her. And it is an amazing study, and to have come up at this time with something so definite and giving women choices that, as Della said, absolutely must happen.
And that's the point here, isn't it, Della? Is there are choices. I had a look at the NHS website where where dealing with menopause symptoms is concerned, and they talk about HRT at the top, and they do briefly mention complementary medicine, but they say that there are risks involved. They don't necessarily suggest it, which is a bit like pot calling the kettle black, really, because obviously HRT has risks as well. But should doctors also be advising patients that there are lots of other options available?
I think it's important to look at the whole issue in the round. For example, a very small number of women do have a family history of breast cancer. So that, of course, would be something that would need to be taken into account when thinking about how to manage your menopause. You know, there are other options, as you say. And, you know, for example, you know, CBT, and we're funding some research to look into that and how effective can that really be. So there are, you know, there are other options, so women shouldn't despair. And I think it's really important to seek really good professional advice and think about things in the round.
Oh, Adela, thank you so much for coming in. And Amanda, thank you so much for telling us about your daughter.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, before we go, a reminder of our top story. Team GB athletes have arrived back in the UK following their best Olympic Games for more than 100 years. The team landed at Heathrow Airport this morning after winning 67 medals, including 27 golds in Brazil, finishing second in the medals table behind the USA.
God save our queen.
An interesting fact, 77 extra bottles of champagne and treats were ordered for the team on the flight home. Well, that's it from us this lunchtime. I'll be here later with Alistair Stewart for the ITV Evening News. News Where You Are follows the national weather, but from everyone here on the Lunchtime News, enjoy your afternoon. Goodbye.